At Alongsiders, we are passionate about seeing changed lives and transformed communities. In fact, we believe that to change an entire nation, you need to change just one generation. And that generational change will happen one person at a time, one alongsider to one little brother or little sister. But we've noticed that a lot of the training that people do does not result in change. People come, they listen to the teacher, and they go back home and nothing changes. But what if we could inspire learning in a way that was guaranteed to bring change? Because that learning wouldn't just be about dumping information from the teacher's head into the learners' heads, but it would be about helping learners to wrestle with the problem for themselves and to come up with solutions for themselves to the very real problems that they're facing. When learners discover a solution together for themselves and come up with an action plan for themselves, they really own that solution. And ownership is one of the core values in the Alongsiders movement. We want movements to be locally led and locally owned. And that means that no one from outside can bring the solution to you. You have to discover that solution. You have to discover what Alongsiders looks like for yourself in your own context. As we say in Cambodia, it takes a spider to repair its own web. We've found that taking learners through a 5-step process can help them to engage not only their heads, but their hearts too. That's why Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your mind, all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength. We've found that this kind of learning happens best in a group context, where a group is learning together, sharing stories, listening to one another in God, wrestling with the problem. And this kind of group learning really builds a sense of belonging, a sense of teamwork, and a common commitment to the vision that God is giving you. Okay, so the 5 steps look like this, and they spell the word owned because in Alongsiders we're all about ownership. So O stands for observe, W stands for weep, N stands for narrow down, E explore, and D decide. Okay, step 1. This is where your learners will become aware of the problem. The problem could be youth leaving the church, young Christians without a vision, vulnerable children lacking love. What is the real problem facing your communities? In Alongsiders, the key issues are around reaching vulnerable children and disengaged youth, or both. You'll need to see and describe what is broken. This is what it means to observe the problem together. And this could be through a role play or a story or a video. The key is to dig a little deeper and explore the hidden challenges. Here are some sample questions that will help you to frame this part of the training. Describe the problem as you see it. How does the problem affect them? How does it affect you? What will happen if this problem continues to get worse? Now, the second step is very important. Once we have identified a problem, our natural instinct is to want to quickly jump to find a solution. But before you do that, wait, hold on. You want to invite your learners to personally identify with the pain and suffering that comes from that problem. Lament, weep, mourn. These are biblical ideas. Help your group to describe and feel the pain of the brokenness caused by this problem. How are they personally affected by the vulnerability of these children? Have they ever felt these things themselves when they were young? Allow yourselves to feel all the emotions that come from not being able to solve the problem right away. It might be frustration, disappointment, discouragement, anger, sadness. Here are some sample questions for this section of the training where you want to lead your learners to weep over their own connection with the problem. What are the specific emotions that you feel as you connect with the problem? Can you see God in the midst of this problem? What do you think God feels about this problem? Now it's time to analyze the underlying reasons for this problem. And those are not always obvious or clear. If they were easy to identify, then the problem probably would have been solved a long time ago, right? So take some time in this section to identify why the problem exists. In this part of the training, you're going to want to ask the question, why? And then ask it with every answer that comes back. Ask why, 4 or 5 more times, why? If you're familiar with the problem tree tool, this is a good time to use it in this part of your training session because it helps you get to the roots of the problem. And you're going to want to narrow down those root causes and especially focus in on the ones that your group has some ability to address. Here are some sample questions that you could use in this section of your trainings. What are the barriers that have stopped this problem from being solved before? Why does this problem exist? And for every answer, say why again. Why? What are the root causes that your group could take action to address? This is the turning point where your group will turn from just focusing on the problem and the causes to actually coming up with a solution. And this step is really only possible after you've done the hard work of uncovering, unlocking, and understanding the root causes of the problem. If you've decided to focus on youth, come up with ways to set their hearts on fire for Jesus. If you've decided to focus on vulnerable children, come up with ways to mobilize youth to reach those children. Open your heart and your mind to what God wants to do in and through you. Here are some sample questions as you lead the section of the training to explore solutions. What are some possible solutions to the root causes you identified? Brainstorm possibilities. Ask a lot of what-if questions. How can the movement model of alongsiders create solutions? Finally, it's very important that you don't just think about solutions, but you come up with a concrete plan to take action. If you've guided your learners well, they will see clearly how Christian youth could be mobilized to reach vulnerable children. Now you need to plan how and when exactly this will happen. Now is your chance to make that plan to make a difference. Here are some sample questions to help you form that action plan. What specific steps are needed to take action? Are these actions scalable? Can your responses grow as your movement grows? How can these actions be multiplied across your movement? What resources and local support network will be needed to make sure that these actions can continue into the future? can you see how this kind of learning, the owned learning ethos, OWNED, this process that we're teaching you in this video will allow you to gather together groups of learners and help them to really catch the vision that comes from their own hearts and their own lived experience. With this owned learning ethos, a group that you facilitate will really have a sense of ownership and excitement for the possibilities of change. Rather than just going home with a head full of knowledge or a notebook full of notes, they will go home with a concrete action plan. And that makes all the difference. That takes learning for learning's sake and transforms it into learning for action and transformation.